I
Got everybody.
put like your picture like for
Hey,
Jim.
good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the April 21st, 2023 meeting of the Operations Board. I will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alcorn?
Here.
Ms. Bagley? Here. Ms. Bailey?
Present.
Ms. Bonte?
Here.
Ms. Crystal? Here. Ms. Franklin?
Present.
Ms. Gary? Ms. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Ms. Lofton? Here. Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Ms. Mensing? Here. Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Stewart? And Chair Walkinshaw?
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin has requested to participate in the meeting remotely due to being out of town. There being a quorum physically present, is there a motion and second to allow Mr. McLaughlin to participate electronically? So
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All of those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Rich will give us a safety briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, we have made some assignments, relative to, 911, AED, CPR and stuff. So Chris and Sarah back there will be our, they'll contact 911 for us. Dallas and Eric in the back. We'll summon the AED, CPR, any equipment that we need. And just as a reminder, we do have 2 exit spaces out of this room. We'd like to use the double wooden doors at the rear of the building as our primary evacuation route, if that makes sense. Once again, do not use the elevator. We'll use the staircase, pop us down onto the first floor, and then we'll exit the building and muster right outside the building to the west of us. That's my safety moment, Chair.
Okay, great. Next item is approval of the agenda, and I'm going to make an amendment to the agenda. Not an amendment, will be to move item 11, which is the closed session, to immediately follow public comments and precede action items 9A through 9I. So we'll have a closed session before the action items. Is there a motion and a second to move that agenda? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Agenda is approved. Next item is approval of the minutes from our March 17th, 2023 Operations Board meeting. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes? Is there a motion and a second to approve the March meeting minutes?
Move that, Mr. Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Chair's comments. Just want to welcome everyone to the April meeting. Please add Wednesday, June 28th, and we'll send this as well onto your calendar for an open house and celebration at the new LIFECYCLE overhaul and upgrade facility from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So please add that, save the date on your calendar. Also, the heads up, and I beg and plead with you to participate in the survey you're going to receive hopefully next week. Help us prepare for the June Operations Board retreat. If you don't respond to the survey, you cannot complain about anything that happens after. You do, you can complain, but we're really looking forward to that, and staff and I have been thinking of what we think are some good ideas, but more importantly, we want to hear from you all about what you'd like to do at that retreat. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rich for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, for safety, I did want to mention that, a year ago, we did, submit and receive approval from the Federal Railroad Administration on our updated system safety plan. One of the elements of that system safety plan was to stand up an enhanced risk-based hazard management process. And that part of that process starts at the committee level. I just wanted to give you an update. That group met earlier this week. We've officially kicked off what is that enhanced process for risk-based hazard management. And we have effectively combined that effort. We found some synergies with some of the other processes that we have that not only identify risks across the railroad or across our operation, but how to mitigate those risks. And this enhanced process, not that we weren't forward-looking before, but this really causes us to be even more forward-looking. So I just want to make that point. That was a huge milestone for us. And periodically, what I plan to do is periodically coming back, whether it's in the form of an information item or just simply as part of my report, and give you some examples of some risks that we've identified and how we're projecting to remedy those. So just wanted to lay the foundation for that discussion. Also, once again, we were able to conduct several training sessions with first responders and others. You see some photos up here of some folks that we had earlier in the month and even at the end of last month from Stafford County. We did do one somewhat unique to us, but very beneficial is we've combined some of these training sessions, not just with our host railroads, but with Amtrak. And in one case, we were able to pull some first responders from Caroline County, which is not one of our jurisdictions, but it is on, just the southern side of Spotsylvania County there. And once again, that training is not just familiarization with VRE equipment and operations. We try to expand that out to just general knowledge about railroads. So we think that that's, or it has been very advantageous. And as you can see, very, very well received. We continue to do these training efforts and very rewarding, if you will, particularly for the participants. It puts them in an environment they're not used to being. So just wanted to highlight that. On-time performance, as mentioned, we're kind of consistent with the last couple of months system-wide. Still definitely well below our target system or target for the system performance. As I stated the last couple of months, we've kind of shifted a little bit where our Manassas line on-time performance has become a little bit more robust, but primarily due to still some system congestion, but more specifically to some extensive maintenance away work that CSX has been conducting on the Fredericksburg line. We've been caught up in that. Again, delay minutes, not too atrocious. They're manageable, but I can't emphasize, a lot of work has been going on out on the Fredericksburg line. A bulk of that work is concluding now. As of last Friday, still some sporadic work going on out there, but so moving forward, obviously, our focus is get this on-time performance sort of reeled back in, if you will, and get it back up to what our target performance needs to be. Just some breakdowns. We did one of the things that we did experience, unfortunately, the month of March is we had I'll just say an exceptional outage on our PTC system. When I say exceptional, this was not just VRE, this was a nationwide issue, and it affected us. It's highlighted in red up there. It did affect us predominantly on one service day. But it affected other railroads, particularly Amtrak, across the nation for a couple of days. So anyway, we were able to get through that. The system or the managers of those systems, did root cause corrective action, and we've been operating pretty good since then. Monthly ridership for the month of March, which was 23 days, very strong for the month of March. Of course, normalized by our average daily ridership. Average daily ridership highest since our fare-free month last September. And I know there's been discussions about, the return of riders, the return of some of the federal agencies and stuff like that. That's still just kind of, the information on that still working its way through the different, different channels and stuff like that. But specifically, we do anticipate, or we'll have a better handle on how that affects VRE, I think, over the course of the next couple of months. So it's the end of my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Rich, can you talk through a little bit more of the PTC issue? Because I think some folks might be confused, myself included, as to how a national issue could impact the PTC on VRE.
So, I try not to get too long.
Yeah, without giving us an hour on PTC.
Yes, I can. Myself or Ms. Crystal, who's our other resident PTC expert. But this is actually at the national level. So they have a system, or part of the PTC system is what we call the federated network. And that's the national level. So all trains across the nation that operate in the PTC universe, they at some level connect through this federated network. So for example, let's just say you have and primarily on the freight railroad side, so you have a CSX train that's under PTC enforcement, and they transition to, say, the Norfolk Southern line. That's meant to be seamless. And it's meant, so that's where the federated network comes in. That's where they bridge, and again, I'm being very basic here, but that's where they bridge the gap between separate railroads and stuff. And specifically what they were having was issues with their communication suppliers like Verizon, Verizon and AT&T, and the third one. So it was really an issue with their
And our trains are part of that federated network.
We are tied into that federated network. When we are logged in and engaged in PTC, through the world of zeros and ones, we line through that federated network. Yes.
Okay, other questions, comments on the CEO report?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm just curious, PTC is a tough explanation to riders. Did you get very many complaints? I didn't hear from many of my riders, but.
What it did for us is like it caused some of our trains to be delayed.
Right.
Of course, that's a negative impact on our system performance. But the delays were for the most case, or for the most part, very, limited, we were still able to operate trains. I will tell you that our friends across the Potomac at Mark Trains were not. It affected them differently. So we were able to continue to operate some trains. I think we had a cancellation or two in there.
So nothing like 4 years ago.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, because we were just,
That's a PTSD I have.
yeah.
And the other thing is this, for us, this started across the country late Thursday night, and it weaved its way into our Friday service. Of course, our Friday service is our lowest rider
Right.
day, so. CSV.
PTSD.
That's right.
Okay.
So Katie, would you mind just you or Janine just giving us a quick high-level management summary on what happened 4 years ago?
Yeah, so I am correcting my technical recollection is off, but at the time, this was our implementation of the system, right, for VRE. And so tracks speaking to our trains as opposed to the way we hook into the federal system, as Rich just described happening here. And for reasons that Rich could probably explain better than I could, it went awry in a number of ways. We continued to have communications issues. And I want to say it went on for probably 3 months of really severe delays, day after day. We were canceling trains. I know the team worked really hard to try to get, various fixes in place. I think that took a couple of times. I can't remember now who was our partner in that? Was it Amtrak? Who was it that we were, or was it our own operators that were deploying the conversation between the trains and the system?
Yes, we have a third party provider for the back office.
Okay.
That's through a contract, but so you have VRE, the third party provider, you have our host railroads. It was, and yes, it was some long dark days, if you will, but everybody was having this issue. Not
Sure.
that this should have,
And it also seemed like it was, if I've got this right, sort of diffuse in its impacts. I mean, it wasn't sort of the same trains day after day. So I wonder, if that answers that question. If you had, if like your train is delayed and somebody else's train is delayed over the course of a week, it doesn't impact you the same way as your commute being off day after day after day.
Okay, Mr. Kelly?
I think in short, if we really got to condense it down, it was really an issue of Norfolk Southern versus CSX versus us communicating. And when those two trains came together and one was off, they weren't communicating in the switchover coming from the Norfolk Southern line onto the main lines.
Yep.
And once you had one train delayed, it just immediately, as we all know, just cascaded through the system. But we had a communication system going from one track onto the other tracks. And we were losing time in between, and that was causing the backup. Big thing.
Okay. Bailey?
Thank you so much. I didn't hear anything either, Janine, so I guess it wasn't as bad as it seems, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Rich and Dallas and Mike. We had a wonderful signing for the Potomac Shores VRE station. We're moving, and that's a great thing. And so I just want to thank you for coming and supporting that and helping us reason with that. It was a great day for the citizens of Potomac Shores. And so thank you for all that you do for us, but your presence meant a lot.
Okay, moving on to rider and public comment. VRE accepts public comment both in person and electronically via the VRE website. Members of the public wishing to make public comments have 3 minutes and should state their full name and the jurisdiction they live in. And written comments submitted before 8 a.m. this morning will be forwarded to the members of the board, read into the minutes, and attached to the official minutes. Do we have any members of the public here who would like to address the board? Madam Clerk, do we have any electronically submitted comments?
Mr. Chair, we do not.
Okay. Next item is on our amended agenda is a closed session, and I'll ask the vice chair to make a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair, not Madam. I'm used to that in Stafford County, my mistake. Pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2-3711.a 7 and 8 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the VRE Operations Board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel concerning probable litigation where discussion in public could adversely affect the negotiating and litigating posture of the board, and for consultation with legal counsel concerning a specific legal matter requiring the provision of legal advice.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? We'll call the roll.
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bagley?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Hayes?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Mensing?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Stewart?
Aye.
And Mr. Waukesha?
Aye.
And that That motion
The
carries.
motion carries. Okay. We need to,
Yeah, actually, we'll have to shut the live streaming off and stuff, and I'm just gonna ask staff to leave the room. Except for John. We have to.
audio test, Mr. McLaughlin. Audio test. Robert, can you hear us?
John, it's Robert. I can hear you.
Thank you. Audio test, Mr. McLaughlin.
I can hear you.
Mr. Chairman. Okay, Madam Vice Chair.
The VRE Operations Board certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge and with no individual member dissenting at the just concluded closed session, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Freedom of Information Act were discussed. And 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Next item is, actually, the action items are items 10A through I, given the amended agenda. So the next item is 10A. Rich, you want to introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we're seeking authorization to execute a contract and a task order for maintenance services for VRE facilities. So, 10A or 9A?
So we amended the agenda, so it's 10.
10.
Yep. It might be 9 on the previously published outline.
Sorry, thank you for clarification. So we, as the background states, we conducted a competitive solicitation. Our current maintenance or facilities maintenance contract was set to expire, so we did a competitive solicitation. What we're recommending is the award of a contract to U.S. Facilities of Chesapeake, Virginia for these maintenance services in the amount stated in the resolution, plus a contingency for a total amount not to exceed $5,196,967. This will be, that amounts for a base period of 3 years. And then what we'll do, this was solicited based, on a base period of 3 years with 1 2-year option period. So what we do is come back to you after the base period to recommend or not the option period. This resolution also what we're seeking is authorization to issue an initial task order under this contract for the maintenance services for VRE facilities under the amount stated in the resolution, plus a contingency. So just this one and the next 10B, similar, we're seeking total contract authorization. And then I'm coming to you at the same time to on-call task order, which is not an amount above that total contract authorization, it's within that total contract authorization. So just want to make that point of clarification. But if you have, that's my summary, Mr. Chair, but if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask.
Just one question, which is, the summary of the descriptions of the competitors, the offers did not include the size of their bids, and it noted that pricing wouldn't be publicly disclosed until after the execution. I could have sworn that I've seen that. We've included the pricing in prior ones. Is there a difference between service contracts and capital contracts?
We will, and we can have Kristen speak specifically. What we'll do is we'll give you the range, which we've done here in the backup. We'll give you the range of the competitive bidders, but you have to keep in mind that the step we're taking now is getting authorization to execute the contract. Then what happens is then Kristen and her group, per the procurement rules, will then post a notification of intent to award. We won't actually execute the contract yet.
Okay.
And then there's a 10-day waiting period or whatever. And then
Would we see then the different bids at the time of award?
Just wanted to clarify that in this particular instance, it was, and the same with the custodial item, their request for proposal, not an invitation for bid.
Oh, that is a difference.
Price, which again, we do have a range in there. We evaluated their qualifications, their personnel, so it was not strictly a price-based award.
Okay, so it's just the difference of procurement mechanism. Thank you for clarification. All right, with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to move authorization. Oh,
No. You make a motion. Fine. And I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion's been moved and seconded.
Just in future, just a future, for public information, it'd also be nice to know what the difference is from the prior bid, and if there's anything in the change. It's gone up 20% because, or it's just inflation, whatever, just say, I mean, it's just nice to know for people look at this and going, costs are going up and we got to deal with it.
I mean, Mr. Chair, I can partly answer that if you'd like as well. So some of the, from a scope perspective, we're pretty much the same, from a scope perspective. There was some additions, enhancements to the scope, but labor and materials, just like everything else, has gone up between, I believe, this solicitation and even the next one. We're in that, in some cases, 8 to 15% range in increases in labor and materials. Just one note with this contract, this base period for the fixed cost portions of the base period, basically the rates are locked in for that 3-year period. So, and of course, when we come back to the recommend, if we do the option period, then they have an opportunity to adjust their costs or their pricing then. So, but point taken. Yep, gotcha.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Action item 10B. Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is seeking authorization to execute a contract and task order for custodial and seasonal services for their facilities. So again, as part of a parallel solicitation process, we've not only solicited for facility maintenance, but for custodial and seasonal services. Parties or proposers could have bid on both, one, etc. So anyway, so we're recommending an award to Fresh Air Duct Cleaning LLC of Maryland for an amount stated in the resolution plus a contingency for again a base 3-year period plus a 2-year potential 2-year option period. And then once again, an additional task order, and this is for on-call services to initiate this task order upon execution of the agreement and the amount stated in the resolution plus a contingency. This one, I'll just say this one was about in that 8 to 9% increase above the last, average of the annual price for the last 2 years of a similar comment. Yes, labor and materials continue to go up. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bunky.
On this particular one, are we using the same contractor? Were they successful compared to who we have our contract with right now?
Yes, they are the incumbent.
Okay, they are the incumbent. Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions on the item? Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
And seconded, any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And C, Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 10C, so we're seeking authorization to execute a contract amendment for VRE mobile ticketing services. So the amendment is in the amount stated in the resolution, plus a contingency to change the total contract amount to the $1,332,312. So briefly, this is this in the March meeting, we did an information item and shared with you all the different primary technical foundations for the different technology systems that we have and that we'll be coming back to you when we want to do some enhancements to this ticketing services. And as it's stated, this will help, this will actually initiate design, do some development work, test and implement some of these enhancements as we described for the passenger information and messaging system. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Bagley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not directly on point, but I had a recent interaction with the mobile app, but I thought like this might be an opportunity just to ask a question. Unless I misunderstood my experience, it doesn't appear at present that you can just buy a certificate of guest. You have to create an account to buy a ticket.
What? I'm sorry, by
Buy a ticket.
As a guest.
a guest.
Yes, right? Like, so you have to register an account through the mobile app to then buy a ticket. And as we're broadening our view of who our riders might be, that one-off, purchase. So again, in the context of this particular action item, but if we're using this to sort of, look at enhancements or things to consider, I just need to throw it out there. Like, admittedly, I don't know how complex, and a back-end interaction that is, but I know that there are other apps that I buy things on or websites where you just skip the registration and just make the purchase. So I just wanted to toss that out there. And while I'm tossing things out there, apologize to the, in terms of like payment methods, right now it's, Visa, MasterCard, that sort of thing, but like, is PayPal an option? Like, it's silly as it sounds, like I reload my Starbucks card, my Starbucks app through PayPal and quite a few other things, and maybe we're getting away from that as a culture. I don't know. But just, again, as we're digging into the app, just trying to throw out the experiential things I've been noticing, along the way, just in terms of ways to broaden usage.
Duly noted.
That's great. Yeah, we can take that back.
Apple Pay, Google Pay, those other.
Okay, other questions on 10C?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? On favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. 10D.
10D, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're seeking authorization to execute a contract amendment for website management services. And this is, once again, this is with American Eagle. Again, an amount stated in the resolution plus a contingency to up their contract to amount not to exceed $1,650. And similar to the previous item, this is to incorporate some design changes, test, develop, relative to or consistent with the upgrades, the enhancements that we're proposing to make with passenger information and messaging system, as described in our. That's my summary, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, questions on the item? Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item 10E.
Mr. Chairman, we're seeking authorization to amend contracts for the delivery of diesel fuel for VRE locomotives. The recommendation and the resolution is quite long. Let me just state that we have 2 fuel delivery contracts, and we had initiated those contracts at the beginning of fiscal year 23. We projected out how much fuel usage that we would use under those contracts. And as you recall, at the beginning of fiscal year 23, our fuel costs were very high and very volatile. So we came back to you in December of 22, amended the budget for fiscal year 23 to add some dollars to the fuel delivery budget line item, which was approved. And so now all I'm doing is coming back and just seeking additional contract authorization on both of those fuel delivery contracts. And what we've stated here is that we firmly believe that'll get us to the end of the fiscal year. And then, of course, July 1, we'll start anew with the fiscal year 2024 contracts. That's my summary, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, questions on the item? Is there a motion?
So move.
And seconded, discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 10F.
10F, seeking authorization to execute a contract amendment for construction of the LIFECYCLE overhaul and upgrade facility. I'll just start that, as stated by the chairman in his comments, by asking all to save the date. We are wrapping up this very important project for us from a construction standpoint. And of course, we're just in the final throes. I think next week, we anticipate to be on or near the substantial completion point, and then we'll be doing punch list items after that. But we're, like I said, we're at the end of this contract, and we're in final negotiation on some of the change orders. And so what I'm seeking here is, what I'm asking is this authorization and it's in the amount of $650,000, increase in total contract amount. That is the ceiling. We're in the middle of negotiation here, and we should be able to wrap this up within the next month, likely before we would come back for a May meeting. And so I'm not saying here, or I'm not implying here that we would expend all of that. I'm just looking for some additional contract authorization, and so we can complete those negotiations. One other thing I just want to bring up as well is that with this project, as we initiated this project, and I brought this back in the form of an information item that showed you some of the potential after we started the construction of this project is, I'll try to orientate you here to this map that we have up. If you look at the top, the original design, and if you look at the track 0, if everybody can see that, track 0, the original design had simply one track coming out of the train wash. And once we started construction, it was about that time that the Commonwealth was acquiring right away from CSX. This was already a pretty tight footprint for us, but because the Commonwealth, and we had some discussions with the Commonwealth and thought, well, if we could just notch out and go lease some of this right away from the Commonwealth, this would actually, well, it'd do multiple things for us. It would actually help us with the constructability of the Lou building. And now I'm going to go to the bottom section here. But it actually enhanced our constructability of the Lou building. Previously, we were going to construct that from a foundation standpoint in segments. But by being able to essentially, as we went through construction, keeping a track in service and stuff there, we were able to construct it all in one length. And again, I'm being very, very trying to summarize that a little bit. But at the end of the day too, what we ended up with is a second storage track. So some of that contingency for this project got basically consumed on the front end. And so a lot of the proposed changes or the changeovers we're dealing with now are just some of the other, as with any project like this, you get in and, you know, some change in site conditions and even, you know, design would show X and you know, we would request some modifications to slightly change the design or orientation of something, you know, just for efficiency purposes and stuff like that. So I did want to show you this, or take an opportunity to show you this. This seemed like a good opportunity to do that. Frankly, this helps us. The next project for this entire complex here included some expansion tracks. So we actually went out and was able to take care of that as part of the project as well. So that is my not so brief summary, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any questions on the item? All right, is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item 10G.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're seeking authorization to execute a contract amendment for construction management services for the LifeCycle overhaul and upgrade facility. So simply put, our construction management services with Annette Fleming, they had to do some additional work as it related to these track enhancements, but also as we got into construction, there was a need, if you will, to have construction management services more so nights and weekends with some of these subcontractors, just from an efficiency standpoint, which was not contemplated when we awarded the contract. So those are some of the areas or the needs for some additional contingency there.
Okay, questions on item 10G? Is there a motion? I'm sorry, Mr. Stork.
Timing on the request now versus doing it sooner or later? What's in particular?
So I think, let me try this, just make sure I'm covering your question. So I'll just say generally what we do is, you know, our teams are watching these things. We understand that we could get to this point, you know, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we could get to this point where we're going to need just a little bit of additional contingency. And but when we're this too close to the close of a project, what I prefer to do is come to you once, you know, within the last month or 60 days of a project, and know exactly what that value is, and just simply come to you once with essentially what the project closeout is. So it's not something that just sprung up on us. We've been watching it. We've been tracking it, particularly with construction management services, is because that's very time driven, as you can imagine, right? So has to do with the amount of time these resources are spending, if you will. So that helps.
That's where I was trying to go. To some degree, I'm also saying the commitments have already been made in essence, and to finish the project, this is what we need to do. I missed something.
Well, in terms of choice, well, I mean, this is a recommendation to the ops board, and these are one of the pieces here too, is that we're still projecting out over the next month or two, you know, to close out the project. So there's a chance that, and that's why in this one here, well, there's a chance that it could be under. So there could be some savings here as well. So, but we're just getting down in that, you know, when the final throws, if you will, the last month, 6 weeks, and it's not likely I'd come back and ask you for anything more.
Okay, any other questions on the item? And
Second.
and seconded, any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. And H,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 10H. We're seeking authorization to offer a promotional reduced fare between zones 1, 2, and 3. As you recall, back in October, we'd received authorization from the Operations Board to do a reduced fare for riders traveling between zones 1 and 3 to help mitigate the shutdown of the WMATA yellow line. Okay, that's about to come to a conclusion, or the yellow line's projected to open on May 7th. And so what we're proposing, what we're recommending here is to extend that reduced fare moving forward, but instead of being primarily to help mitigate, this is more of a promotional thing. And frankly, what staff wants to be able to do, and this is kind of a rare opportunity for us, is that we've been successful on, obviously with this flat fare, $5, where we've been successful at increasing ridership in just that zone 1 to 3. And as stated in the fiscal impact, and in the background, the sales volume for riders as we compared at a period right before this reduced fare, the ticket sales volume was up about 155%. And on top of that, the fare revenue, so where we reduced the fare amount, the fare revenue is up by about 60%. So anyway, what staff wants to do is be able to not, return or propose and not return to the normal fares, keep them where they're at. And then that way we can further analyze this transition back to WMATA on the yellow line and see what that impact is to us. And be able to gather that data over the summer and come back to you as part of our budget process and stuff, and report back out on this and really see what actually happened here at the end. Did we keep a lot of the riders? Did we lose a lot of them, or somewhere in between? So that's my summary, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Rich. And, one thing I'll just say, when Rich and I talked about this earlier this week, it struck me that, and, we had a dialogue about fares and subsidies for this year's, for the budget. Historically, I think we've kind of operated under assumption that our riders, VRE riders, are not particularly price sensitive, given transit benefits and the maybe socioeconomic status of our traditional riders. And that's probably still true, but I think so far the reduced fare program might be demonstrating that new folks, new riders are attracted by lower fares and lower prices. And it's too early maybe to conclude that fully, but I think this will give us a chance to keep looking at that, because one of the choices we're going to face as we bring back our old riders and attract new riders is to what extent do fare prices play into that. And I'm hopeful that this will help us get even more detail and analysis on that. Mr. Schwartz.
Yeah, I strongly support this. I think it makes sense. I think the toughest thing is will help us get more data, get a better sense of how that will work and the competition, quote unquote, that we have for the line. I think the difficulty is the percentage increases. We don't really have any, we're kind of on quicksand trying to estimate what that is, because the whole world is moving as we're doing it. But I think doing this for the end of the year will give us hopefully a better sense, a better context.
Ms. Spencer?
Are we surveying any of these customers? Are we sending them any sort of electronic survey or exit survey to any of these customers at these stations?
arriving.
Okay, we do surveys. I mean, you mean specific to?
Yes. Why they're arriving.
Reduce
What attracted them? Was it the metro shutdown or the reduced fare?
Yeah, so we did do some survey work last year when we started, and we're about to go back out with our customer survey. And so maybe from that, a specific survey of why they stayed, why they, I mean, there's a possibility there. We'll do our customer service survey, which asks a lot of those same questions and stuff here May 10th, and we'll see what the results of that are. And if we're not getting what we need from that, then we can put a survey out. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Alcorn?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate all the comments. I think we do need to get smarter about this. And it's self-extending. I was thinking about the comment earlier, one-time purchase, using the app, but, these shorter haul trips, particularly where there might be hotels or other, tourists that actually might be good. And on price sensitivity, that's something else curious. I mean, these are pretty short. They're short. Certainly comparing the options. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? All right, is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 10I.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, we're just seeking authorization to provide a letter of support for the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority's application for federal state partnership for intercity passenger rail program funding. And this is specifically for TRV, or Transform Rail in Virginia Phase 2 projects. Just look at that from the summary described. This really focuses on that, on the Alexandria North area, 4th track, and includes the LaFont 4th track as well, which is a project that we're managing. So, excuse me, for that. My summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any questions on the item? Is there a motion?
Move.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 11, spending authority report.
I have this. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have the spending authority report and information. So if you have any questions, glad to answer. And that's it.
Okay, no questions. We'll move into operation board members time. We'll start with the vice chair.
I'll pass. Thank you.
I'll pass.
Yes.
Thank you.
Somebody's got to have something.
Pass. Happy Easter. No, I'm just kidding.
Steve,
Pass.
Yes.
okay, I'll keep it going. Thank you, everyone.
Chair,
All right, Mr. McLaughlin, anything on board members time?
sure. Yes, Mr. Chair, just a couple quick items. Thank you for approving that motion on the Phase 2 projects. That Fed State application is going in today. DJ Stadler, the Executive Director of VPRA, and myself met with Deputy Secretary Polly Trottenberg of USDOT earlier in the week. She loves the fact that we have a good relationship with VRE, and she's very well aware of that. We also have a friend there who we can now talk to, and Deputy FRA Administrator Jennifer Mitchell. As you know, my former boss at DRPT and now the Deputy FRA Administrator. Her 1-year period of not being able to talk to us is over. So it's good to have friends in the right places. Also want to note that an announcement went out last week that there's a framework agreement between VPRA and Maryland MTA regarding MARC run-through service. It's basically an agreement to talk again in 2028, a couple years before Longbridge is done, because MARC service, we can't have MARC run-through service unless Long Bridge and the 4-track project that Mr. Dalton just mentioned are complete. So it's just an agreement to talk in a few years. I don't want to get into the weeds, but I did want people to be aware of that agreement. It does need VRE board approval because per our agreements between VPRA and VRE, VRE has exclusive commuter rail rights on tracks that we own. I'm sure Mr. McIsaac would remind me of that if I had forgotten. So it'll take approval by the VRE commissions and the change in our agreement to allow Mark run through service. And they're just looking for a couple trains, I think, to Alexandria. So anyway, happy to talk about it another date, but I did want people to be aware of that.
That's good. I think more train riders and fewer drivers from Maryland is a good thing. A lot of levels. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I was asleep on the computer. No. The problem is we have a hand calls with a job. Yeah. So they don't care about. It's like, what are your updates of what you've been doing? So it's always